The cafe door slammed open with a force that made every cup and saucer tremble. A masked man strode inside, measured, deliberate, his presence slicing through the quiet hum of morning coffee chatter. Conversations stopped mid-sentence, and the soft hiss of steaming milk seemed to vanish under the sudden tension. Customers froze, eyes wide, holding phones and wallets in trembling hands. Before we go any further, hit subscribe, like, and leave a comment. You won't want to miss what happens next. The black waitress didn't flinch. Not a flicker of fear passed across her composed face. She straightened behind the counter, her hands resting lightly on the polished wood, eyes scanning the room with precise calm. She didn't need to shout, she didn't need to act aggressively, her presence alone seemed to anchor the panic around her. "Stay calm," she said softly, her voice firm but controlled. "Nobody needs to get hurt." The masked man froze for a brief moment, thrown by her calm. Most people, most moments, demanded force to get attention, but her presence made him hesitate. A slight uncertainty crept into his movements, though he quickly masked it with a rigid posture. From the corner of the room, a man in a tailored dark suit observed quietly. He didn't move or speak. His eyes, sharp and calculating, followed her every motion. The Korean Mafia boss. Known for his meticulous control, his ability to anticipate danger, and his ruthless reputation, he found himself caught off guard. Her composure unsettled him in a way he had not felt in years. The robber's voice snapped sharply. "Cash. Now." On the counter. His words carried weight, urgency, a subtle threat. Customers ducked instinctively, some sliding under tables, others clutching the backs of chairs. The waitress, however, moved deliberately, opening the cash register with calm precision. Every gesture intentional, every glance measured. The boss leaned slightly forward, intrigued. Her hands moved with a rhythm that seemed effortless yet exact, a balance between grace and authority. She wasn't performing for him, and yet each movement drew his attention, made him study her. She commanded attention, subtly, without demanding it. The masked man's hands shook slightly as he gripped the bag. "Hurry," he barked. The waitress didn't respond with alarm. She placed the money carefully into his bag. "Please, take it," she said softly, "but don't hurt anyone. That's all I ask." Her voice, calm yet unwavering, made him hesitate for the briefest moment. A small child under a table whimpered. The waitress's gaze softened. "It's okay," she said quietly. "Stay down. You're safe." The boss noticed the warmth and authority embedded in her words. Recognition tugged at him, though he couldn't yet place why the tone felt so familiar. There was intent, awareness, and control, a combination that unsettled him deeply. The tension in the cafe thickened like air before a storm. The robber moved toward the counter, bag in hand, yet there was uncertainty in his stance. The waitress's calm anchored the room. Even those who had initially panicked began to absorb her steadiness, adjusting their posture, holding their breaths, listening without moving. The boss watched this subtle influence unfold, fascinated by her silent authority. He noticed the small details, the tilt of her head as she scanned the customers, the way her eyes connected with the child for just a second, a subtle nod to reassure them. Nothing was wasted, nothing haphazard. Each movement was deliberate. Each word calculated. And yet, it all felt natural. There was no showmanship, no effort to dominate, only pure, understated control. The masked man's impatience returned. "Faster," he barked, his voice rising slightly. His hands shook as he tried to force compliance. The waitress didn't flinch. She continued to work deliberately, placing the remaining bills carefully into the bag, her calm unbroken. She spoke again, softly, to diffuse tension. "Nobody needs to get hurt. Everything is fine. Just take it." The boss leaned back slightly, analyzing her micro-expressions. The small movements, the precision, the quiet control over fear, it fascinated him. He had never seen anyone command compliance and calmness without intimidation or threat. It was mastery disguised as simplicity, and it unsettled him profoundly. Recognition tugged at his memory, a cadence, a tone, a subtle quality in her voice, but he couldn't place it. Yet it affected him deeply, gripping him in a way that was rare for someone like him. The child peeked out from under the table, holding tightly to their parent. The waitress's eyes met theirs for a fleeting moment, reassuring without a word. The boss's attention sharpened. This was no ordinary presence. This was someone with experience, control, and intent, and it made him curious, wary, and fascinated all at once. Minutes stretched. The masked man fumbled with the bag, anxious now, unsure how to act. Every movement was observed by the waitress, who maintained her composure, her presence shaping the space. The boss watched the growing tension, noting each subtle shift, the robber's hesitation, the child's response, the customer's cautious glances. Her control was quiet, yet palpable. A soft cough came from one corner of the café. She glanced briefly, gave a reassuring nod to a customer who had tensed up. Each tiny interaction reinforced her mastery. The boss's eyes narrowed, focusing on the precision of her actions. He had encountered control before, but this was different. There was no threat. There was no force. Just presence. And it was magnetic. The robber exhaled sharply and stuffed the money into the bag. His movements were still jerky, but the act was complete. The tension eased, though the air remained thick with unease. The black waitress adjusted her apron, wiped a counter lightly, and returned to her duties. Each motion precise, deliberate, controlled as if nothing had happened. The boss remained, silent, observing. He didn't move when the intruder fled. He studied the subtle cues, the tilt of her head, the precise movements of her hands, the calm cadence of her voice. She had transformed a potentially violent moment into one dominated by her composure. His curiosity grew. Recognition pressed at him again, a tone, a rhythm he could not place, yet it disturbed and intrigued him simultaneously. A regular whispered to a friend, almost inaudibly, "Did she really stay calm the whole time?" The boss caught the awe in the voice. He allowed himself a subtle nod. Yes. She had remained calm. And the effect on everyone, especially him, was profound. Another moment passed. A customer accidentally dropped a cup, the crash sharp but brief. The waitress didn't flinch. She bent down, collected the cup, set it aside. Calm. Controlled. Her presence anchored everyone in the room, the boss included. He had never witnessed such command without dominance, such influence without aggression. The child under the table finally peeked, hand still clutching the parent. The waitress gave a tiny nod, almost imperceptible, and a soft smile. Authority without force, presence without threat. He found himself leaning forward slightly, trying to analyze what he was witnessing. It wasn't skill alone, it was more. Experience, awareness, and presence combined in a way that fascinated him. Finally, the intruder fled, leaving only the echo of his hurried movements. The café exhaled collectively. The waitress returned to her work, wiping counters, adjusting napkin holders, refilling coffee pots, ordinary acts performed with extraordinary calm. Her mastery over the space lingered in every small gesture. The boss stayed seated a moment longer, taking in the scene. She had handled the entire situation flawlessly, and yet it had been subtle. No panic, no aggression, no overreaction. Just presence. The effect on him was profound. Recognition tugged at him again, a sound, a tone, a quality in her voice, and curiosity deepened. He rose slowly, leaving the café, but lingered in the shadows outside, observing her as she moved among customers. Every gesture, every word, every slight glance carried weight. He felt a rare tug in his mind, something that unsettled him while simultaneously compelling him to learn more. He had never encountered such quiet mastery, such subtle authority. Inside, the café returned to its rhythm. Conversation returned in hushed tones. Coffee machines hummed. Cups clinked. But one observer remained absorbed in thought, captivated, and quietly unsettled. Outside, the boss lingered, shadows hiding him, curiosity and fascination driving him to linger a moment longer. If you're already hooked, hit subscribe, like, and leave a comment. The next part will escalate the tension even further. The cafe settled into an uneasy rhythm, the low hum of conversation returning slowly, hesitant, like a heartbeat recovering from a jolt. Cups clinked, coffee machines hissed, and a faint aroma of fresh pastries floated through the air. Yet the memory of the masked man lingered, hanging over every table, every whispered comment. The black waitress moved among the patrons with precise grace, attending to orders, wiping counters, refilling drinks. Her composure was flawless, yet even she couldn't fully ignore the ripple of tension in the room. A few customers still clutched their cups tightly, exchanging glances that spoke of lingering fear. She approached them calmly, offering quiet words. "Everything's okay. You're safe." Her voice carried a warmth that soothed, even as the memory of the threat hovered nearby. From his corner, the boss watched her, leaning slightly forward. He had stayed in the shadows outside for a moment longer, lingering to observe her recovery from the crisis. Now, seated inside once more, he studied her in detail. Every motion was measured. Every glance was purposeful. She had done more than survive an armed intrusion. She had subtly shaped the reactions of everyone around her, commanding control without ever raising her voice. The boss's mind raced. He had encountered fear and courage countless times. He had seen people crumble under pressure, falter in moments of chaos, even break under threat. But she was different. He could feel it in the cadence of her voice, the precision of her movements, the way she balanced authority and empathy effortlessly. Recognition stirred again, faint but insistent. That tone, that control, it was familiar, like a memory just beyond his reach. The door opened again, this time gently, allowing in a draft and a new wave of morning light. A few late customers entered, glancing nervously around the cafe. Most noticed the black waitress first, drawn to her calm, steady presence. Even from a distance, she projected reassurance. The boss followed her movements closely, noting the subtle ways she engaged with each patron, a tilt of the head, a soft smile, an attentive gaze, all conveying a message of competence and safety. A man approached her table with a spilled cup. "Excuse me," he said, voice wavering. "Could I get a new latte?" She nodded, calm and focused. "Of course. I'll have it ready in just a moment." Her movements were precise, measured, yet entirely natural. The man relaxed slightly under her attention, settling back into his chair. The boss's eyes lingered. Every interaction, every subtle gesture reinforced what he had sensed earlier: mastery, calm authority, and a quiet power that was impossible to ignore. He leaned back, thinking, analyzing. How could one person wield such influence without aggression, without threats, without overt control? And yet, she had done it in the span of minutes, during a high-stress event. He could feel a rare tension in his chest, part admiration, part curiosity, part something he couldn't yet name. He shifted slightly, watching her bend to clean a spill near the counter. The motion was simple, ordinary, but the way she executed it, deliberate, controlled, unhurried, was mesmerizing. Each movement reinforced her presence, her authority, her calm command over the environment. He leaned forward again, almost unconsciously, captivated. The masked man's intrusion had left its mark, but now a quieter, subtler tension emerged. Customers whispered to one another in low tones. The child who had hidden under the table was now seated with a parent, eyes wide but no longer afraid. Even the air seemed to hold a different weight, as though her presence had shaped the room permanently. A regular approached the counter, voice nervous but polite. "Are you okay?" She glanced up, meeting his eyes. "I'm fine. Everyone is fine," she said softly. "We just need to take things slowly." Her words carried assurance, and the man relaxed, nodding slowly. The boss's attention sharpened again. There was something in her voice, subtle but unmistakable, that unsettled him even more. Recognition tugged at him once again. That tone, the rhythm of her speech, the calm strength embedded in it, it was familiar. Not in memory, not in experience he could pinpoint, yet it struck deep, stirring an unexpected tension in his chest. He leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on her, analyzing every micro-expression. She moved to refill a coffee pot, her hands steady, her posture perfect, her focus complete. He noticed the slight pause in her gaze as she glanced toward the window. A subtle awareness, scanning her environment, reading the space, assessing risks. She had not only navigated the robbery flawlessly, she was prepared, vigilant, precise. The boss felt a rare pang of respect. He had faced professionals, people trained in crisis, people who had honed their instincts over years of danger. And yet, in this ordinary café, faced with an ordinary armed man, she had outperformed them all, not with skill, not with force, but with presence. It fascinated him. It unsettled him. A soft cough drew his attention. She turned slightly, giving a reassuring nod to a young woman who had sneezed nervously. That tiny gesture, almost invisible, carried confidence, empathy, and awareness. He noted it all. Every interaction reinforced the pattern, the precision, the subtle mastery. The door opened once more. This time, a delivery man stepped in, carrying a box of pastries. He paused as he noticed the atmosphere, the tension that still lingered faintly in the room. His eyes flicked to the waitress, and he unconsciously straightened, sensing something in her calm. The boss's gaze followed him, noting the unspoken influence she wielded over every person who entered her space. Minutes stretched, time moving in slow, deliberate waves. The boss leaned back, eyes narrowing. He hadn't planned to linger, hadn't planned to be captivated by a cafe worker, and yet he could not tear his attention away. Recognition tugged at him again, faint but insistent. That voice, that control, that presence, he had encountered echoes of it before, but never in this form. The waitress moved to clear a table near the window. Her hands were steady, her motions precise, her eyes scanning the room as she worked. Customers watched her, some whispering softly, others simply observing, captivated. She had transformed what could have been a traumatic morning into a space of calm, authority, and quiet control. The boss's mind raced. He had trained himself to observe, anticipate, control. Yet here he was, fascinated, unsettled, and intrigued by a single person's presence. He felt a rare tension in his chest, curiosity mixed with admiration, fascination mixed with something darker, something he could not yet name. The waitress moved to a nearby customer who had spilled sugar on the table. "It's okay," she said softly. "Accidents happen." Her tone reassured without condescension, commanded without dominance. The man's tension melted slightly, his shoulders relaxing as he glanced at her with cautious awe. The boss shifted again, noting the subtle nuances, her posture, her eye contact, her measured gestures. Every moment reinforced her mastery, the quiet influence she exerted over those around her. He could not explain why it unsettled him so, why it drew him in, why he felt compelled to observe. If you're on the edge of your seat, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. The suspense is about to escalate even further. The child who had been hiding earlier now whispered something to their parent. The waitress glanced their way, offering a soft nod. Safety. Assurance. Calm. She had maintained the room's equilibrium without confrontation, without threat, without panic. It was extraordinary, subtle, and undeniable. The boss leaned forward slightly, caught between fascination and tension. He had encountered authority, courage, skill, and manipulation countless times. But never had he seen someone command attention, control fear, and instill calm so effortlessly. Recognition tugged again at the edges of his memory. That tone, that subtle rhythm, familiar yet elusive, unsettled him even more. Suddenly, the bell above the door jingled again. A new customer entered, a woman carrying a small bag. She froze mid-step as her gaze met the black waitress. Something in that brief connection caused her shoulders to relax unconsciously, her posture shifting as though comforted by invisible reassurance. The boss's eyes narrowed. Every new interaction reinforced the effect she had on others. Every glance, every word, every small gesture amplified her presence. Minutes ticked by, the cafe's rhythm restored but tempered with a quiet vigilance. Customers whispered, ordered, moved carefully, all subtly guided by her presence. The boss's mind churned. Who was she? What had trained her to navigate pressure so gracefully, to command attention so effortlessly, to remain unshakable in moments that would paralyze most? He realized then that his curiosity had shifted. It was no longer passive observation. He needed to know. Not just her name, not just her story, but the source of her calm, her authority, her presence. And he would find out. As the day pressed on, the waitress continued her work, moving among the tables with precise grace. Each gesture reinforced the pattern: authority without aggression, control without dominance, calm without fear. The boss observed silently, captivated, unsettled, intrigued. He stayed until she finished serving a group near the back. Every interaction, every moment, every tiny gesture had left its mark. He rose, moving toward the exit, pausing in the doorway. One last glance, a silent acknowledgement of her mastery. The curiosity, fascination, and tension lingered as he stepped into the street, shadows hiding him from view. Inside, the cafe resumed its hum. Cups clinked, coffee machines hissed, conversations resumed. The black waitress adjusted a chair, wiped a counter, and continued her day unaware of the profound effect she had on a single observer, someone whose curiosity, fascination, and tension had been ignited in minutes. The cafe had settled into a rhythm that was calm but cautious. Every clink of a cup, every hiss of the coffee machine, seemed sharper in the shadow of what had occurred. Customers whispered in low tones, eyes darting toward the black waitress. Some watched her move from table to table, a gentle efficiency in her gestures, while others simply observed from a distance, captivated without understanding why. The boss remained seated near the back, his sharp eyes never leaving her. He had stayed longer than he intended, compelled by a fascination he couldn't explain. Recognition tugged at his mind once again, that familiar cadence in her voice, the calm authority in her posture. He had met countless people trained in crisis, skilled in strategy and manipulation, yet none of them had wielded presence like she did. This was different. He couldn't name it, couldn't anticipate it, yet it gripped him wholly. She moved to a table where a customer had spilled sugar, bending slightly with calm precision. "It's okay," she said softly. "Accidents happen." Her words, unassuming yet firm, had a disarming effect. The customer straightened, shoulders relaxing under the invisible weight of her authority. The boss's fascination deepened. Every small gesture she made seemed to ripple outward, shaping reactions, easing tension, commanding attention without force. Minutes ticked by, each one increasing the subtle pull she exerted over the room. The boss watched her interact with customers, noting every tilt of her head, every glance, every micro-expression. Each movement was deliberate, purposeful, and yet natural, no hint of performance, no overt attempt to dominate. This mastery unsettled him, drew him closer, both in thought and in attention. The child who had hidden under the table earlier now whispered something to their parent. The waitress glanced briefly in their direction, nodding once, offering a tiny, reassuring smile. Safety. Calm. Assurance. She had navigated the earlier chaos flawlessly, and now, she guided the residual tension with subtle grace. The boss shifted in his chair, observing. Recognition pricked at him again. That tone, that calm authority, that presence, he had encountered echoes of it before, somewhere deep in memory, but never like this. The pull was irresistible. Every interaction she had reinforced his need to understand her, to see more, to know more. A man dropped a fork at a table near the window. She bent down carefully, picking it up, her movements precise, measured. "Here you go," she said softly, placing it back neatly. The man blinked, almost startled by her calm and attentiveness. The boss's eyes narrowed. Even the smallest gestures carried weight. Every interaction amplified the effect she had on those around her. He found himself leaning forward slightly, captivated, analyzing every micromovement. She moved with subtle authority, commanding attention without overt displays of dominance. Her composure was magnetic. His curiosity, already piqued, now bordered on obsession. He needed to know who she was, why she was this way. Time moved slowly, each second emphasizing the tension that lingered even in calm. He watched her pause briefly at the register, assessing the space, scanning the room for any potential disturbances. Even now, minutes after the robbery, she maintained vigilance. Awareness blended seamlessly with composure, and it unsettled him. He had faced threats, danger, chaos, but here, in a simple café, a single woman exerted mastery over an entire room with the sheer presence of her being. His attention wavered only slightly when he noticed the subtle expressions of the customers. The child's parent glanced at her with relief, the couple near the counter whispered quietly, the delivery man adjusted his grip on the box, all subtly guided by her calm authority. The boss's mind churned, analyzing patterns, movements, tones. He leaned forward again, intrigued, unsettled, compelled. Recognition flickered again in his memory, a faint, almost forgotten sense of familiarity. She moved to clear a small spill near the pastry display. Hands steady, movements precise, eyes alert. Even the simplest tasks became demonstrations of poise and control. The boss felt a rare tension in his chest, curiosity mixed with admiration, fascination mixed with unease. He had never witnessed anyone so unshakable, so subtly commanding, and so impossibly natural under pressure. Minutes stretched, and the café seemed suspended between calm and residual tension. The boss remained in his seat, unable to tear his eyes away. Each small interaction reinforced her mastery, authority without aggression, presence without threat, calm without faltering. He had encountered authority, courage, skill, and manipulation countless times, but never had he felt drawn, unsettled, captivated, and compelled by presence alone. If you're on the edge of your seat, don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. The story is about to reach its most suspenseful moment yet. The black waitress moved to a table near the back where a customer had dropped a napkin. She bent slightly, picked it up, and smiled softly. The gesture was simple, ordinary, yet, in the context of the morning's events, it carried quiet power. The room seemed to exhale slightly under her influence. Even the boss, seated in the shadows, felt the weight of her presence pressing against him, drawing him deeper into fascination. The door jingled yet again, drawing the attention of everyone inside. This time, it was a man in a business suit, carrying a briefcase. He hesitated, glancing around, sensing the calm authority that permeated the café. His posture shifted subtly, a subconscious response to her presence. The boss's eyes narrowed. Each new arrival reinforced the phenomenon. She wasn't merely calm, she was magnetic, commanding, precise, and utterly extraordinary. The waitress moved gracefully to greet a late-arriving customer, her hands steady, her gaze attentive, her voice soft but firm. "Welcome. Please, take a seat anywhere you like," she said. The man nodded, lowering his briefcase carefully, and seated himself, tension visibly easing. The boss observed quietly, fascinated. Every interaction was a lesson in control, mastery, and influence. Time passed, and still the boss remained, absorbed. Recognition tugged again at his memory, a tone, a cadence, a subtle presence he had felt before but could not place. Every action she took amplified the pull he felt. He wanted to understand, to uncover the source of her composure, her authority, her ability to shape an entire room with quiet presence alone. She moved to refill a coffee cup for an elderly customer, bending slightly, her hands steady, her eyes scanning the room. The boss's gaze followed her, noting every detail. Micro-expressions, gestures, timing, tone, all precise, all deliberate, all natural. He leaned forward again, captivated, compelled, almost obsessed. Recognition tugged again, a memory just out of reach. The cafe's rhythm continued, punctuated by the faint hum of machines and quiet murmurs of conversation. Each small gesture by the waitress reinforced the tension and fascination. Authority without aggression. Presence without threat. Calm without faltering. The boss felt drawn, unsettled, intrigued, a rare combination that few had ever managed to produce in him. The day edged forward. A customer approached her counter with a small complaint about a cold drink. She listened carefully, nodded, and offered a solution, her voice calm, her gestures precise. The customer left satisfied, tension eased, unaware of the subtle control she exerted. The boss observed, fascinated. Every interaction, every word, every glance reinforced the same truth: she was extraordinary. Finally, as the afternoon sun streamed through the windows, the boss rose slowly. He lingered in the doorway, his eyes fixed on her. Every gesture, every glance, every subtle shift in posture drew him in further. The fascination had grown into something more: curiosity, obsession, tension. He had to know her story. He had to understand her presence. Inside, the black waitress continued her work, unaware of the depth of impact she had left on a single observer. She adjusted chairs, wiped counters, refilled coffee cups, moved with precision and grace. Her mastery was subtle, invisible, yet undeniable. The boss finally stepped outside, pausing in the shadows. Recognition tugged again, the faint, elusive familiarity that he could not yet name. Fascination, curiosity, and a sense of tension burned within him. He had to see more. He had to understand her. The cafe hummed on, calm now, yet charged with an invisible energy. She moved among the tables, serving, assisting, connecting subtly with every patron. Mastery without effort. Authority without dominance. Calm without faltering. And outside, a shadow lingered, curiosity and obsession entwined, waiting, watching, captivated. The boss finally stepped back, leaning against the doorway, tension and fascination entwined with a rare kind of awe. He had seen many things in his life, faced countless crises, and met countless extraordinary people, yet none had left an impression like this. She had commanded a room, guided fear into calm, and shaped attention without a single raised voice. And now, so did you, sitting there reading this story, feel the pull of suspense, the intrigue, the curiosity, and the tension building. If your heart is racing, your mind trying to anticipate what comes next, then you know what it's like to be in the cafe right now, witnessing everything firsthand. Before we continue further, don't forget to hit subscribe to join the story as it unfolds. Tap like if you want more thrilling moments and heart-pounding suspense. Leave a comment sharing your thoughts. Who do you think the black waitress truly is? How did she remain so unshakable? And if you want to catch the next twist, make sure notifications are on. You won't want to miss the next chapter where the tension escalates beyond anything we've seen so far. Every glance, every gesture, every subtle movement she makes has a story behind it. And as we continue this journey together, your support keeps these tales alive. So, subscribe, comment, like, and share this story with anyone who loves suspense, mystery, and unexpected heroes. Let's see if the next twist surprises even you. And as the cafe settled, the boss remained outside, hidden in the shadows, lingering, captivated. But you don't have to wait in the shadows. Stay with us, because the story is far from over and the next chapter promises revelations, surprises, and a suspenseful encounter that will leave your mind racing.